Close your eyes for a moment. Yes, right here, even with the glow of this screen in front of you, and imagine that tonight something quiet and precise begins to move inside you. Not a showy miracle, not fireworks, but a gentle turning of an inner key you did not know you carried. You are not here by accident. This video did not appear in your feed. It found you at the exact hour you were ready to stop living on repeat, ready to stop shrinking, stalling, looping through the same corridors of thought and calling it a life. What follows is not entertainment. It is a threshold. Watch as if your future could hear you watching, because it can. Feel how the day has been clinging to you, the list you didn't finish, the conversations that stayed under your skin, the weight that sits behind your ribs. You've tried effort, you've tried control, you've tried forcing a smile over the ache. Tonight asks for something simpler and infinitely braver: surrender. Not the collapse that fear imagines, but the kind of surrender that lets a wiser rhythm take the lead. This is not another pep talk. It is a code. It is a door. It is a way of meeting your own mind at the depth where change actually sticks. Breathe in slowly and let your shoulders drop. The more your body softens, the more your inner world opens its hands. Imagine, just for a heartbeat, that there is a luminous staircase unrolling in front of you, step after gentle step. With each quiet descent, the noise recedes. The opinions lose their grip. The story that says you are too late, too much, too far gone, begins to thin like mist in the morning. You are arriving at the most receptive place you will ever know. The chamber where your subconscious listens without resistance and says yes without argument. From here, what you plant does not wither. It takes root. Let me speak to the part of you that is exhausted from searching outside for what has always lived within. You are not broken. You are patterned. You are not behind. You are ready. The limits you keep meeting are not iron gates. They are settings. Tonight, those settings are about to shift. Picture a door made of light, quiet, intelligent, ancient. It does not open to force. It opens to permission. And your permission has already been given by the very act of pressing play. You do not need to try your way into transformation. You need only allow the part of you that remembers who you are to step forward and speak. If your heart feels even a small stir, as if a whisper inside has just said, "This is mine," anchor that feeling with a simple act. In the comments, write one sentence in the present tense about what you are transforming now. Not someday, now. I sleep in peace and wake in clarity. I am a magnet for aligned abundance. I love with courage and choose with calm. Write what you choose to live, as if the ground beneath your life could read your words and respond. And if this message is landing exactly where you needed it, stay with this process by subscribing. Not for numbers, not for noise, but to keep your attention tied to a space that will keep reminding you of your own power when the old patterns try to call you back. You have spent years negotiating with doubt, editing yourself to fit rooms that never felt like home, swallowing the feeling that there must be more.
Tonight, we stop negotiating.
Tonight, you let your nervous system remember safety without permission slips. You let your mind retire the script that turns every new chapter into the same old page. You let the deepest part of you hear a different story, one where you are the cause, not the leftover of your past. One where rest is not laziness but strategy. One where abundance is not a chase but a frequency you learn to hold. This video is not here to impress you. It is here to reintroduce you to yourself. As you settle, you will notice the simplest signals: breath that travels farther, jaw that unclenches, thoughts that give up their need to shout. That is your field preparing to be rewritten. In a few moments, we will descend together into a rhythm that teaches your body how to let go and teaches your mind how to listen. You do not have to perform worthiness. You do not have to understand every line. The subconscious understands tone better than theory, atmosphere better than argument. Give it presence and it will give you back your life. Hold this truth gently. You are allowed to be new. Not performatively new, not new for a weekend and then back to the same ache, but quietly, sturdily, structurally new. You are allowed to believe in a change that arrives like dawn, soft, certain, inevitable. You are allowed to let this night become the first time you stopped trying to fix yourself and started letting yourself unfold. Keep breathing, keep softening. The staircase is waiting. And now, without hurry and without strain, we begin. Not with slogans, but with breath. Not with pressure, but with pace. Follow my voice down through the hum of the day to the place where your consent is enough and your yes carries weight. You will not be pushed. You will be guided. What comes next is the descent. The part where your body learns safety, your mind learns quiet, and the door of light starts to open from the inside. Begin by noticing the simple animal grace of your breath as it arrives without request, leaves without argument, and returns again with a loyalty you rarely pause to honor. Let the breath lengthen, not by force, but by curiosity. What happens if you give it just a little more room, as if you were widening a doorway for a dear friend to pass through? Feel your ribs agree to this kindness. Feel your belly receive the wave rather than brace against it. The day loosens its fingers. The thoughts that perched on your shoulders like busy birds remember another branch and fly. You are not trying to empty your mind. You are letting it set down its bags. There is a difference, and your nervous system knows it. Now let your attention walk down through your body like warm light pouring from a gentle lantern. It finds your feet first, where the ground keeps its quiet promise to hold you up. Let the soul soften as if you had been clenching the earth and have finally decided to trust it. The light moves into your ankles and calves, where effort collects. You tell that effort it is off duty for the night. Knees relax into their hinge, thighs release the ancient habit of gripping for control, hips remember they are a cradle and not a clamp. The low back, faithful servant, receives permission to stop pretending it must carry the sky. The belly loosens its armor. The heart space warms as if a small sun were rising behind the sternum. The throat opens from the inside like a door that was never locked, only heavy from disuse. Jaw unhooks, tongue rests. The tiny muscles around your eyes, those guardians of vigilance, melt like frost. Your forehead smooths, and with it the past stops insisting on a role in the present. In front of you, imagination lays a staircase woven of light. No walls, no rails, only a steady invitation downward into a place that already belongs to you. Each step is a breath, and each breath is a soft subtraction of noise. You begin at the landing where daylight lingers, and with the next exhale you take the first step. You do not count to dominate the mind. You count to give it rhythm. Somewhere around the 20th beat, your muscles remember how to be heavy and safe at the same time. A few breaths later, the narrative engine that turns every feeling into a forecast runs out of fuel and coasts to a stop. Past 15, your breath organizes itself. It becomes the metronome of calm. Around 14, thoughts arrive like birds and then keep flying because there is nothing to perch on. At 13, the body is weight and water. At 12, a soft current holds you. At 11, the border between inner and outer thins until what you feel is not a room, but a field. 10 is a clearing, where you can finally sit down inside yourself without company. 9, the extra stories detach like autumn leaves. 8, a safe depth where vigilance has no job description. 7, a closeness to your own center that makes the surface seem very far away. 6, the mind stops auditioning and listens. 5, time lets go of its clock and becomes space. 4, you are ready without trying. 3, something within you nods. 2, the door understands. 1, you are home. Here, your awareness widens and softens at once like a lake at daybreak. There is no need to hold the edges together. They hold themselves. The quieter you become, the more capable you feel, as if competence were the natural fragrance of calm. Let a gentle assurance take the chair where doubt liked to sit. Let the body learn without lectures. Your subconscious prefers tone to argument, atmosphere to analysis. Offer it a room where the air is kind, and it will begin to rearrange the furniture without waiting for instructions. You may notice a fine humming at the crown of the head, as if a window were cracked open to a larger sky. You may feel warmth gather behind the breastbone, the way coals gather under ash when the fire is about to speak again. You may sense your hands growing heavy and then light, as if learning a language of release. These are not tricks. They are signatures of safety. As you rest in this depth, picture your breath like silk being drawn slowly through the loom of your body, weaving steadiness where the day had left frayed threads. On the inhale, you collect yourself from the corners where you were scattered. On the exhale, you let go of what never belonged to you in the first place. Opinions that tried to rent space in your chest, images that rehearsed old fear, habits that kept you loyal to a version of yourself you have outgrown. You are not pushing anything away. You are allowing gravity to do what it has always done when you stop resisting. Bring you back to center. Notice how sound moves around you like weather without entering the house. A stray thought passes by the window, taps once, and wanders off when you do not answer. The body understands there will be no emergencies tonight. In this understanding, the cells begin their quiet work of repair, sending small crews to the tendons and tissues, checking the chemistry, settling the electricity into a calmer pattern. You do not need to supervise. You could not, even if you tried. Your only task is trust, a soft trust, not a performance, like resting your head where it belongs and letting the pillow complete the sentence. If a doubt arrives, it is welcomed like any other traveler and pointed toward the guest room where it can sleep instead of pacing. If a memory knocks, it is given tea and told the new rules. Here, we do not relive. We release. If a hope appears shyly at the threshold, it is invited to sit by the warmth under your ribs and stretch its legs. Your inner weather clears without you chasing clouds. What remains is space, and in that space, a faint glow gathers. No drama, just the sense that something intelligent is turning toward you from within, the way a flower turns toward light it can feel but not see. Stay here. Let the breath keep time. Let the body remember its own kindness. Let the mind fall in love with quiet, not because it is empty, but because it is true. You are readying the soil. You are clearing the field. You are smoothing the ground where seeds can take root. There is nothing to force. The descent has done exactly what it was meant to do, lowered the noise, lifted the safety, opened the door between what you want and what you are willing to receive. When you are this still, the next movement does not need to knock loudly. It arrives like recognition. Somewhere just ahead, a door made of light is about to open, not by effort, but by permission, and with it a current of gentle power will begin to flow through you as easily as breath. Stay with the calm you have earned. In the next step, we will cross that threshold together and let the opening begin. Stay with the softness you've earned and notice how, in this quiet, the center of you begins to glow as if a dawn were choosing to rise from the inside out. The breath continues its gentle work, and in that rhythm a door appears. Not the kind that clangs or creaks, but a threshold made of light, simple and intelligent, waiting for nothing but your consent. You do not need to push it. You do not need a password or a posture that proves something. In this place, permission is presence. By choosing to be here fully, you have already turned the handle. The light leans toward you, warm but not blinding, clear but not harsh, like the exact tone of honesty you wish every conversation had. Step closer without stepping at all. Feel how the door opens the way morning opens, quietly, inevitably, with no one needing to announce the sun. As the threshold parts, imagine a fine stream of luminous current pouring into the room of your being. It does not rush. It does not demand. It moves with the confidence of water finding its level. This is the language the subconscious understands better than any lecture. Feeling made gentle, truth made breathable, intention softened into atmosphere. For years, your conscious mind has tried to negotiate change at the surface, rewriting lines while the stage set remained bolted to the floor. Here, the set itself begins to move. Here, you stop arguing with the script and invite the playwright to the table. The subconscious is not stubborn by nature. It is faithful. It protects the agreements you have made with reality, even the ones you didn't know you signed. And because it is faithful, it responds when a deeper agreement arrives, one written in the ink of safety, worthiness, and calm authority. Let the light meet your chest first, where old narratives have been stored like boxes in an attic. You don't need to open each one. You don't need to catalogue their contents or prove you're done with them. Your task is simpler. Allow the atmosphere to change. When the air in a room freshens, every object in that room is affected whether or not anyone touches it. So it is now. Feel the old stories loosen their tape. Feel the labels curl at the edges. Feel the heaviness of inherited conclusions grow lighter, as if someone opened a window you couldn't reach before. Nothing is being erased. Everything is being recontextualized. You are not abandoning your history. You are changing the altitude from which your history is understood. Now notice the belly, where control has tried to live like a clenched fist. The light does not pry those fingers open. It reminds the hand that it is a hand, not a lock. Muscles that once mistook bracing for safety begin to understand that safety is a tone, not a tension. With every inhale, the current arrives carrying an unspoken message. You can trust the rhythm that keeps you. With every exhale, control sets down its heavy armor and discovers it can guard without gripping. This is not the fake relaxation that collapses at the first sign of life. This is the durable ease that comes from alignment, the kind that keeps its shape when the room gets loud. Let your mind do what it was meant to do at this depth. Listen. The conscious part of you is a brilliant gatekeeper, but gates are built to open when the right travelers return. Tonight, the travelers are seeds. Each word you are hearing is a small, living container of pattern. The subconscious is fertile soil by design. It does not interrogate a seed's resume. It receives. What matters is the climate, and climate is being set now, moist with permission, warm with presence, quiet enough for new roots to take hold, without competition from weeds of noisy doubt. Picture the words landing softly and sinking at their own pace, like rain deciding for itself which roots it will feed first. You do not need to force germination. Germination is not a performance. It is a chemistry that happens when the conditions are kind. If questions appear, will this last? Am I doing it right? Let them pass through the door and be answered by the room itself. Lasting change is not a mood, it is a structure. And structures begin at the level of blueprint, not wallpaper. The blueprint forming tonight is simple and uncompromising. You are worthy without negotiation. You are safe without permission, slips from the past. You are powerful without needing a target for that power. The subconscious takes these lines and begins to redraw the load-bearing walls of identity. You won't hear the sound of hammers. You'll feel the relief of better architecture, the way certain choices suddenly cost less energy, the way old detours stop calling your name, the way your first instinct becomes kinder and truer without rehearsal. Allow the light to move through your spine like a patient river, asking each vertebra to remember that it is a bead on a string of trust. From the crown to the tailbone, the central chord of you is being tuned, not to a pitch of perfection, but to the note of honesty. Honesty here does not mean confessing failures to some invisible jury. It means refusing to lie to your nervous system about what it needs. When you stop lying in that way, when the body is allowed to be a body and the mind is invited to be a servant instead of a tyrant, the field around you stabilizes. The subconscious, always listening, registers this stability as permission to release old emergency protocols. Alarms that used to ring at the slightest provocation stop wasting your energy. Power that was trapped in hypervigilance becomes available for creation. There is a sweetness in this stage that cannot be faked. It is the sweetness of not having to earn your breath. It is the sweetness of discovering that allowing is not laziness. It is obedience to the deeper laws by which life grows everything from galaxies to gardens. You may notice a soft, humming clarity take the chair where confusion liked to sit. You may find an image rising unbidden, a door swinging inward to a sunlit room, a field after rain, a path through woods that you somehow know leads home. Do not chase the image or push it away. Let it land, then let it teach. The subconscious loves parable more than proposition. Give it a story made of safety, and it will find your sturdiest truths and bind them to that story with thread that does not snap. As the current circulates, it brings with it a gentle intelligence that sorts without scolding. Habits are evaluated like tools on a bench. This one still serves, this one can be sharpened, this one was always too dull for the work you asked it to do. There is no drama in this sorting because drama was the habit. The light prefers precision. Precision saves time, and time saved becomes attention, and attention is the currency with which you purchase a different future. You will feel this in tiny mercies, the way you answer yourself more kindly, the way you pause naturally before the old reflex. The way your body raises a small flag at the moment a boundary needs to be honored. You are not becoming hard. You are becoming accurate. Let the door of light remain open. Let it make a path through every room of you. If you encounter a corner that has been shut for years, do not brace. Stand in the doorway and let the climate change the contents. What cannot live in this air will leave on its own. What belongs will gleam. In this way, you are not forcing transformation. You are curating environment. And environment always wins. A seed planted in stone cannot pretend itself into bloom. A seed planted in soil this kind cannot help but try. Trust the mathematics of climate more than the arguments of fear. You may feel even now that a new agreement is being written in a language you do not have to translate. The terms are generous. You will no longer trade your peace for belonging. You will no longer perform smallness for safety. You will no longer outsource your worth to rooms that profit from your doubt. The light writes, the soil receives, the roots begin. Nothing on the surface looks dramatic yet, and still the future has already changed because the blueprint has. This is the quiet victory that lasts, the kind that does not need witnesses to be real. Stay very still for a breath or two more, and let gratitude rise without speech. Gratitude here is not a thank you note to the sky. It is the posture of a field after rain. It drinks, it does not apologize for needing. It does not debate whether it deserved the weather. It receives because reception is its purpose. Let yourself receive at that same depth. Let receiving become a form of responsibility you take seriously. And now, with the door standing open and the seeds already nestled where they belong, notice what the next movement wants to be. The light does not only soothe, it instructs. It asks not just how you feel, but who you are when the old stories lose their contract. That is where we go next. Not into slogans, not into borrowed bravado, but into the gentle structural rewrite of identity that begins while you sleep and stands when you wake. The opening has done its work. The soil is ready. In the following passage, we will let the new architecture of self take shape, beam by beam, truth by truth, until the life that fits you better begins to fit you for real. Identity is not a sentence carved into stone. It is a house that gets remodeled in the quiet when the workers of the day have gone and the night brings its meticulous crew. While you rest, that crew moves through the blueprint your subconscious has accepted, not with sledgehammers, but with careful hands and steady measurements. The change is structural, not cosmetic. Wallpaper slogans cannot hold a roof in a storm, but new beams can. Tonight, those beams are being set, belief by belief, boundary by boundary, breath by breath, until the framework inside you can carry more light without leaking, more power without posturing, more tenderness without breaking. Begin by feeling how the old rooms of self have been organized around survival. In one, a chair where approval has sat like a monarch, demanding fealty before granting permission to feel at ease. In another, a desk covered in plans to prevent the unpredictable, as if the future owed you certainty in exchange for your vigilance. Down the hallway, a closet of costumes for every occasion where truth felt too risky, the agreeable smile, the uncomplaining backbone, the expert who keeps earning belonging with performance. None of this makes you a villain. It makes you a brilliant builder who used the tools you had. But the house was loud, and the rent was your peace. Tonight, a new architecture rises that does not tax you for being yourself. As the door of light remains open, the first foundation stone is set where worthiness lives. Worthiness here is not an award you win or a wage you earn. It is the ground that refuses to argue with your right to exist as you are. Feel that ground under your feet. It does not move when someone doubts you. It does not sink when you make a mistake. It does not shift to mirror the mood of a room. The subconscious hears this stability and updates the core program. I'm not negotiating my value anymore. With that single line, countless micro-choices change their chemistry. People-pleasing loses its glamour. Over-explaining bores you. Apologizing for taking up space feels as silly as apologizing for gravity. You do not become hard. You become anchored. From that foundation, new walls rise around your attention, the most precious square footage in your inner city. For years, attention has been treated like a public park with no gates, open to every wandering narrative and every flashing siren. Now caretakers appear with keys and kindness. They do not banish the world. They curate it, They choose what gets planted here, what gets pruned, what gets composted into wisdom. A memory that once hijacked your mornings is now met on the path, greeted, blessed, and invited to keep walking. The subconscious registers the change. Attention is a sanctuary, not a highway. This is why thoughts that used to roar through like freight trains now arrive like visitors who ring the bell and wait to be let in. The staircase within this new house leads to a room where power is practiced without a target. Power that needs an enemy to feel alive is panic in costume. True power is coherent energy moving in a chosen direction, not to dominate, but to create. In this room, you rehearse a different posture. Shoulders not lifted by stress, but set by decision. Voice not sharpened by fear, but clear because it is tethered to truth. Spine not stiff with defensiveness, but aligned with purpose. At night, your nervous system studies these shapes as if memorizing choreography, and by daylight, your body recalls them without effort. The subconscious edits the choreography of your days. No more dancing to the tempo of other people's chaos. No more sprinting for approval. No more bowing to urgency disguised as importance. Authority becomes quiet, and because it is quiet, it is trusted. Walk down the hall to the room where emotion is no longer a flood you must outrun or a drought you must deny. Here feelings live like weather, real, informative, passing. Shame loses its throne because it is no longer fed with secrecy. Guilt drops the robe it borrowed from responsibility and reveals itself as a teacher with a short lesson and no appetite for punishment. Grief is allowed to finish its sentence, and in finishing, it softens into gratitude for the depth that love introduced to your life. Anger, welcomed at the table as a truth-teller rather than a demolition crew, names what is sacred so that boundaries can protect it. The subconscious learns a new rule. Emotions are messengers, not monarchs. With that rule in place, the house breathes better. Windows open, air moves. You stop confusing intensity with importance and begin to prize coherence instead. Now, enter the workshop where old patterns are disassembled without contempt. You will see mechanisms that once kept you safe clicking along out of habit. The reflex to predict rejection before anyone speaks. The impulse to fix what is not yours to mend. The urge to delay joy in case joy disappears. Do not scold these machines. They were loyal to the contracts you signed with fear. As the light fills this room, the contracts dissolve like ink in warm water, and the machines power down with relief. In their place, you install simpler devices. A pause before you answer, a breath before you judge, a hand on your heart before you agree to what you do not want. The subconscious, a master of repetition, eagerly adopts these new sequences because they cost less energy and return more peace. In the kitchen of this inner house, nourishment is prepared, not as reward for perfect behavior, but as a daily ritual of respect. You will feel how sleep becomes sacred labor, how food becomes partnership rather than penance, how movement shifts from punishment to conversation, how silence turns into a pantry where answers are stored. The body listens to the new rhythm and gladly participates. Hormones find their balance. The immune system stops acting like a cornered animal. Digestion remembers its ancient timing. Breath becomes a metronome that keeps everything honest. None of this requires magic. It requires permission. The subconscious updates the policy. Maintenance is not mundane. It is mastery. Upstairs, a studio waits where creativity meets purpose without fighting for the same chair. This is where you will sketch the shape of the life that fits you better. Work aligned with gifts, relationships aligned with respect, finances aligned with flow, time aligned with meaning. The sketch is not a wish list. It is a draft the universe loves to collaborate on. While you sleep, conversations in tomorrow begin to tilt toward you. Ideas choose you because your field no longer scares them away with scarcity. Synchronicities find your address because your frequency is listed correctly at last. The subconscious stamps the plan with a seal it honors. Act from worth, not from worry. Build for longevity, not for applause. There is also a nursery in this house, quiet, dim, tender, where new identities are allowed to be newborn. You do not drag them to daylight and demand they run. You guard them like small flames, cupping your hand against the wind of opinions, feeding them with small, consistent acts, letting them grow to a size that can meet the street. In this room, you whisper promises to yourself and then keep them in unremarkable ways. You get up when you said you would. You tell the truth when silence would have been easier. You stop scrolling when your peace starts costing too much. The subconscious loves promises kept. Each one becomes a joist under the floor that will not sag when weight arrives. Finally, step into the atrium where light is most abundant and look up. The ceiling is glass here, not to expose you to scrutiny, but to invite you to remember the size of your life. You are not a closed system. You are connected to a field that wants to cooperate with your clarity. In this space, prayer becomes less about pleading and more about alignment. You say, "Lead me by peace," and then you watch how decisions that do not carry peace disqualify themselves without a fight. You say, "Show me the next honest step," and tomorrow lays out a path you could not invent in advance. The subconscious adopts a final, quiet law. Guidance is gentle and specific. If it screams or shames, it is not mine. When you return to the center hall, the house feels different without any need to announce it. Rooms that used to echo now hum. Doors that stuck now swing. You are not performing a new personality. You are inhabiting a truer architecture. Others may notice before you do. They will comment on the calm in your eyes, or the way your no feels clean, or the fact that you laugh more easily. You will notice in moments that used to take you down, the argument that does not steal your week, the email that does not borrow your worth, the plan that changes without bankrupting your joy. This is what identity rewritten sounds like when no one is narrating it. It sounds like breath, like pace, like a house whose lights turn on at the right time because someone cared enough to rewire it properly. Let this knowing settle. You do not have to hold the entire structure upright with willpower. You only have to occupy it room by room with the presence you brought to this night. The subconscious will keep building while you sleep, tightening what needs to hold, softening what needs to bend, clearing what needs to go. When morning comes, do not look for fireworks. Listen for ease. Reach for the small decision that honors the new blueprint and let momentum belong to God. And because architecture is meant to be lived in, not admired from the curb, there is something more to receive before you rest completely. There is a moment once the scaffolding of identity has been strengthened in the quiet, when life itself leans in to test the new resonance. Not as an examiner with a red pen, but as a river asking if you are ready to be carried farther without thrashing. Abundance, health, and purpose are not prizes handed to the worthy. They are natural consequences of coherence. When the inside of you stops arguing with itself, the outside stops arguing with you. You do not chase, you allow. You do not grasp, you receive. You do not audition for a role that is already yours. You walk on stage because the cue belonged to you before the script was written. Begin with abundance, that word so often bruised by hunger and hype that it forgets what it means. Abundance is not noise around money. It is the clean movement of resources through a field that has no kinks, no hidden knots of shame, no hairline fractures of not enough. Feel into that field now. Notice how the breath that once stopped in your chest out of old superstition now completes its journey as if someone removed a gate you didn't realize was there. This is how money wants to move through you as well, without apology, without panic, without the story that it must be wrestled to prove your seriousness. You are learning to treat money like you treat breath. As a faithful servant, not a fickle god. As exchange, not identity. As a tool in hands that value what is true more than what is shiny. When you release the romance with scarcity, gratitude stops being a performance and becomes your posture. And posture is what the world recognizes when it decides again and again to entrust you with more. Abundance widens beyond numbers the way rivers widen beyond banks in the right season. It looks like time that stretches around your priorities instead of punishing you for them. It looks like conversations that return energy instead of taxing it. It looks like opportunities that arrive not because you knocked down every door, but because your frequency left the door ajar for what belongs. You start to see how generosity multiplies without keeping score, how giving from a place of wholeness does not deplete but irrigates. You discover that saying no to what underpays your soul is a down payment on what overpays your peace. And when money does come, you do not clutch it as proof that you finally matter. You aim it like water at roots that matter already. Your health, your craft, your circle, your quiet acts of repair in a world addicted to spectacle. Health follows the same law. The body hears the new architecture of self and stops living like a fortress under siege. It remembers it is a garden. Gardens do not grow because they are yelled at. They grow because conditions are kind. Kindness here is not indulgence. It is precision. Sleep, once treated as an afterthought or a badge of weakness, returns to its throne as sacred labor. While you rest, the unseen crew that loves you recalibrates your chemistry with a competence you could never manage on your own. Immune cells briefed and deployed like luminous caretakers. Hormones agreeing on a rhythm that does not pit you against your own tides. Tissues stitched by the patient needle of night. You wake to a body that greets you rather than argues with you. A body that combines power and softness the way a bow holds tension and releases music. Food, too, remembers its rightful job. It is not currency to pay off guilt or a cudgel to punish desire. It is conversation, a way of telling your cells we are safe and resourced. Water becomes a sacrament rather than a chore, carrying messages like a choir of tiny messengers, rinsing what is ready to leave, hydrating what is ready to bloom. Movement shifts from penance to courtship. You move not to become worthy, but because you are already worth moving. The body, respected as a partner rather than a project, becomes astonishingly generous. Pain softens where honesty returns. Tension unknots where boundaries are kept. Energy stabilizes when you stop selling it to every emergency auditioning for your attention. Health is not a miracle you order overnight. It is the reward coherence pays in installments that actually last, and purpose, how it changes in the new atmosphere. Once you tried to make purpose a mountain to climb or a title to grip, as if your life would finally begin when the world announced your job. Now you see purpose as a current that has been moving through you all along, even on the days you thought you were drifting. Purpose is not a single noun to be chased. It is the way your being turns verbs into blessings, to listen until truth feels safe enough to speak, to build what will hold when fashion changes its mind, to tell the story that redeems rather than flatters, to repair what shame would rather hide, to make beauty that steadies rather than distracts. In this coherence, the work of your hands becomes a love letter, written in your dialect, sometimes public, sometimes hidden, always faithful. Watch how alignment clarifies placement without spectacle. You will feel drawn to rooms where your gifts are not novelties to be consumed, but instruments to be tuned. You will notice that the work which costs you the least in performance costs you the least in recovery. You will become allergic to roles that require you to amputate parts of yourself to fit. Your yes grows weight because your no grows clean. Purpose ceases to be a riddle you bully the future to solve. It becomes obedience to the next honest step. And because obedience is lighter than obsession, you stop burning yourself to keep rooms warm that never learn to build their own fire. Coherence weaves these three, abundance, health, purpose, into one fabric. Pull on any thread and the others respond. When you keep your word to your sleep, your work stops sounding like strain and starts sounding like song. When you tell the truth about your limits, money stops charging interest on your self-betrayal. When you spend time like a craftsman rather than a gambler, your body thanks you with stamina instead of survival. And when you give generously without abandoning yourself, opportunities arrive that prefer partners to performers. This is not magic. It is mathematics written in the language of the soul. Systems align when the center holds. You will notice small proofs everywhere. A bill that once spiked your nervous system now meets a plan that was waiting calmly for its arrival. A conversation you used to dread becomes the doorway through which respect enters and stays. A project that would have taken 3 frantic weeks settles into 5 focused days because attention is a scalpel when it stops apologizing for being selective. These proofs are humble and they are holy. They teach you to trust fruits over fireworks, process over panic, steady over sensational. And because trust is cheaper than fear, you accrue the one wealth almost no one is taught to measure: surplus peace. Let this sink in without hurry. You are not graduating into a life that will never test you. You are consenting to a coherence that will not abandon you under testing. When disruptions come, and they will, you will return to principles that do not lose their power because the weather is loud. Worthiness is not up for negotiation. Attention is a sanctuary, not a highway. The body is a partner, not a project. Money is breath, not a master. Purpose is obedience to the next honest step.
Say them under your breath the way a sailor checks the rigging.
The sea respects vessels that are tended, and so does life. And now, because architecture becomes a home only when habits move in, we will bring this coherence down into the minutes that make a day. There is a way to greet morning that keeps the download from the night before. A way to steward energy so your light burns long instead of only bright. A way to organize your hours so they become proof of what you believe rather than evidence of what you fear. In the next movement, we will anchor all this in simple, repeatable rituals, more compass than calendar, so that the river can carry you farther without asking for a toll you can't afford to pay. Transformation that only lives at midnight becomes mythology by noon, unless you invite it into your hours. The work of the night has prepared the soil. Daylight is when you plant with your hands. The simplest way to keep what you've received is to treat morning like a front gate. When you wake, do not let the world in before you let yourself in. There is a tenderness in those first minutes that can be traded cheaply for noise or invested wisely in presence. Sit at the edge of your bed and breathe until you can feel your weight settle into the day without bracing. Place a palm on your chest long enough for your heart to register that you are here on purpose. If a dream followed you from sleep, write it down without solving it. Symbols ripen when they are respected, and respect often looks like a few honest lines on a page before breakfast. Guard your attention as if it were light in a lamp you plan to carry through crowded streets. Screens will ask for it first because they know how much it is worth. You do not have to hate them to be free of their schedule. Delay their entry until you have spoken with your own life. Read a paragraph that widens you. Step outside and let the morning touch your face so your nervous system remembers that the world is larger than your to-do list. Drink water slowly enough to taste the kindness in it. These are not performances. They are agreements with the part of you that knows pace produces power. When you begin like this, you teach your day who is in charge of your climate. As hours unfold, you will recognize the places where energy used to leak, as if the roof had unfixable holes. The leaks are rarely dramatic. They are the extra yes that knots your stomach while your mouth is smiling. The conversation you keep attending long after it has stopped being a conversation. The habit of scrolling past your own life to witness strangers living theirs. You are not required to behave as if you are powerless in your own house. Practice a pause that lets your body vote before your calendar does. When your chest tightens, honor it as a boundary arriving to help you, not an obstacle to be overridden. A clean no is a blessing that preserves 1,000 future yeses. You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming clear. Work becomes truer when you remember that output is not the only measure of fidelity. Bring your presence to a single task until you can hear the quiet click of completion, even if what you finish is small. That click rebuilds trust between you and yourself. Trust is momentum you can spend later when the stakes are higher. When confusion appears, ask for the next honest step rather than the entire map. The next honest step is a compass you can actually carry. Maps become heavy in loud seasons. If urgency tries to dress in the clothes of importance, let your breath decide. Urgency demands speed. Importance tolerates silence while you confirm alignment. Most of what seeks to frighten you loses authority when you refuse to run. Nourishment during the day is continuity with what the night began. Eat because you are worth feeding, not because you earned it or because you fear what will happen if you don't. Walk not to erase yourself, but to arrive more fully in your body. Rest before you are desperate, so rest remains repair instead of rescue. Step into patches of nature as often as your life allows, even if they are only a tree on a city corner or a square of sun on the kitchen floor. The body recalibrates to truth when it meets things that do not pretend. You will feel how quickly your breath aligns when it has something honest to measure against. Relationships offer you the most immediate classroom for this new coherence. Speak plainly when you can and gently when you can't. Refuse the bargain that trades your peace for the illusion of harmony. Let your yes be something you can carry without resentment the next morning. Let your apologies be swift and specific, so shame does not have time to decorate the room. Receive care without rehearsing all the reasons you don't deserve it. Offer care without pretending you do not have limits. Love and boundary are not rivals. They are the two hands that hold a life together. Money will keep testing your climate until it learns you have changed the weather. Pay what is yours to pay with a posture that says you are not negotiating your worth with a bill. Ask to be compensated in ways that honor the value you bring, not because you are entitled, but because your work is no longer available for the price of your self-betrayal. Give in ways that make you lighter rather than hollow. Save not as fear with a ledger, but as care with foresight. Let generosity be the proof that you trust flow more than hoarding. The more you treat resources as breath, the more breath they bring. Keep a small altar of attention in the late afternoon when days often sag. It can be as plain as a glass of water you drink without distraction, or a 5-minute walk where you count your steps until the mind quiets. It can be a sentence written across a page that begins with "I am willing" and ends with something precise enough to change you by an inch. Inches become miles when they are repeated, and repetition is what the subconscious respects. If you choose one small promise to keep each day, your identity will learn to predict your faithfulness. There is a strength in that predictability no speech can counterfeit. Evening asks for gentleness that looks like preparation rather than punishment. Dim lights before your screens tell you to. Put your body in the kind of order it can recognize in the morning with gratitude. A clean counter, a room that invites rest, clothes set out so your first decision is already made. Send tomorrow a brief note in the form of a list with 3 lines that matter and no more. Leave space for serendipity so the day can surprise you kindly. When you lie down, release the ledger of what did not happen and bless what did. You are building a life, not delivering one on demand. There will be days when the world is louder than your rituals. On those days, reduce your faithfulness to a seed you can still plant. A single deep breath before you answer the phone. A hand on your heart in a restroom stall. An apology whispered to your body for asking too much today, and a promise to do better tomorrow. Seeds sown in hard weather still count. They keep you loyal to the story you are living and not the one you were trained to repeat. As you practice this integration, observe the change in your atmosphere the way a sailor watches the sea. Synchronicities will begin to feel less like shocks and more like confirmations. People will adjust to your steadiness or drift away from it. Both are mercies. Work will find its right size, neither a god to appease nor an enemy to resist. Your home will start to sound like a sanctuary when the door closes and the day releases you back to yourself. You will begin to trust that the gentlest tools, breath, attention, boundaries, pace, are also the most durable. Keep the night sacred by letting day keep its promises. The more your hours agree with your midnights, the less effort you will need to spend convincing yourself that change is real. You will know it because you live it, because you can feel the seam between intention and action disappearing, because peace returns faster after it is interrupted. This is how the download becomes a life. Not in grand declarations, but in the way you treat the next 10 minutes. And when these minutes gather into weeks, something else becomes possible, something larger than personal maintenance or private relief. Coherence begins to broadcast. You move through rooms as climate rather than commentary. Your frequency becomes a quiet invitation for others to remember themselves. In the next movement, we will step into that outward field. How to live your signature frequency so that leadership is felt without being announced. How to guide by presence rather than pressure. And how to let your life carry light in a way that outlasts the noise. Let the night close gently around you like a curtain drawn by a loving hand. Not to hide the stage, but to let the set change in peace. You have descended into the quiet where your body remembered safety without permission slips, where the mind loosened its grip and learned to listen, where a door of light opened by consent rather than force. You invited seeds to meet soil. You allowed a new architecture of self to rise, not a mask you must maintain, but beams and joists that hold when weather comes. You felt abundance reframed as clean flow, health as a partnership with the wisdom inside your cells. purpose as obedience to the next honest step. You practice small fidelities that let midnight become morning without losing the download. And you discovered that coherence is not a posture you perform, but a climate you carry. What happens now is simpler than the old effort and truer than the old fear. While you sleep, the workers of the unseen continue their meticulous craft. They move through the blueprint you accepted and refine it where your day made new requests. They sand rough edges where urgency snagged your patience. They widen doorways where love asked to enter with more room. They oil the hinges on boundaries so they swing without squealing. They quietly retire the alarms that once rang at every shadow and install gentler bells that ring only when truth needs attention. You will not feel their hands, but you will wake to their work, the way a choice that used to cost you an argument with yourself now costs you a breath and leaves you richer for it. The way a conversation that once stole your peace now returns it with interest. The way your no lands clean and your yes lands light, because both are anchored in worth that no longer negotiates. Do not look for miracles loud enough to startle you out of sleep. Look for fruits that do not need an audience to taste sweet. Notice the steadiness in your pulse when a bill arrives and you meet it like an equal. Notice how your shoulders stay low when plans change because your identity no longer depends on choreography. Notice the hands you extend toward yourself when you stumble, hands that lift without scolding because shame has lost its contract and honesty has learned a kinder voice. Notice how your attention, once a public square with no gates, has become a tended garden, and how the world, recognizing a tended garden, brings birds instead of scavengers. There will be days when the old weather returns and tries to name the sky. You do not need to win an argument with clouds. Return to the principles that outlast forecasts. Breathe until the nervous system remembers who is steering. Place your hand over your heart and let the oldest prayer rise, lead me by peace, and then obey the first small instruction that does not cost your center. If something screams or shames, it is not your guidance. If something steadies and specifies, it likely is. You are not behind when you move at the speed of truth. You are being timed by a wisdom that prefers root systems to fireworks, longevity to spectacle, fidelity to applause. When you meet people you love, allow your coherence to be hospitality, not proof. You do not need to announce what is different. The room will feel it. You do not need to convince anyone to change. Your climate will give them a place to breathe until their lungs remember how. Answer questions when asked. Bless in silence when not. Keep your boundaries like doors that close gently and latch without a scene. Give generously without leaking. Receive gratefully without debt. Work as if your craft could overhear you and learn to trust your hands. Spend time as if it were water in a drought, and later as if it were rain in a field you have planted. Let laughter keep your humility agile. Let rest keep your usefulness honest. Let beauty keep your courage kind. As you lie down now, turn your face toward the future like a sunflower, toward light it can feel but not see. The agreement has been made in a language beneath words. You will rest and the work will continue. You will sleep, and the mind you thought you had to manage alone will quietly rewire itself toward peace. You will dream, and symbols will deliver their parcels to the places logic cannot reach. You will wake, and something about your pace will tell the truth before your mouth does. Do not rush the proof. Do not hoard it either. Share it in how you answer a stranger, in how you leave a room better than you found it, in how you bless endings without bitterness, and greet beginnings without fanfare. There is nothing left to force. There is only the dignity of consent and the courage of repetition. Consent to be new one more time tomorrow morning. Repeat the small promises that make the architecture real. Protect the gate of your attention. Feed your body like an ally. Choose the next honest step when the map is unclear. Measure importance by peace rather than drama. Forgive quickly enough that shame cannot furnish the room. These are not glamorous vows. They are the beams that hold. They are the reason storms become weather instead of destiny. Rest now in the confidence of a sacred contract honored. Let the night do what it knows. Let the body repair and the field recalibrate and the seeds push quiet roots into kinder soil. You will wake to a life that behaves a little more like the one you saw when the door of light first opened. And then another day will join it, and another, and the string of ordinary mornings will begin to look, from a distance, like a miracle that took its time on purpose. Sleep peacefully, beloved. The change is already underway. The house is warm. The lights know when to come on. The life that fits you is not somewhere else. It is here, learning your name as you learn its rhythm. Close your eyes. Trust the work. Wake as proof.